I asked the question when he left Egypt. They gave me the answer. He was 80 when he left Egypt with the Israelites, but I don't know how old he was when he trying again.
Okay, here we go. Okay, I think here we go. Robert, I think I accepted you.
Zoom,
yeah. You're there. Okay, just put yourself on a little lower. Okay, we're going to learn the Gemara today. We have a wealth of Gemara on these parshas, so we're going to learn it. The Gemara on Bilam. I was thinking of two subjects we could study. One was really the end of the parsha, which is what happened over there with Pinchas, and where we learn about the beginning of the parsha, which led to the end of the parsha, which is the story of Bilam. I think if we're going to learn about the Sonei Yisrael, about negative things, let's learn about it, Sonei Yisrael, not something that happened that's painful to us. Maybe we'll learn it next week in the beginning of Pinchas if I'm teaching. Okay.
80. Let's say 80, some say 40.
But 80, he couldn't have been 80. He took the Jewish people out at 80.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was 80 when he returned. He spent 40 years in Midian, so he was 40 when he left.
And he was 40 though. That's when he got there.
Yeah.
Good.
According to a very inconsistent chat GPT.
But he was not raised there as a child.
No.
That's what I read Moshe said.
Okay, so we're holding in the middle of the page. Okay. We're in the middle of the page 1. It's 105a. It's middle of the page. If you scroll down, it's going to say.
It doesn't move.
But it's not moving. Because you're looking at the Zoom. Just look at where you are. That's fine. You can't scroll it. You have to decide either you're going to watch it with me on the Zoom or you open the Gemara for yourself.
Okay, what's the?
You see, it says Arba. It says the Mishnah teaches that 4 prominent. You see that commoners? Are you looking at your screen?
What am I looking for?
Well, you open up the message I sent.
What's I'm doing now?
And then just push the text, and then you'll have just the text. You were trying to look it through the Zoom.
Okay, Mishnah teaches 4 prominent. That's what we're
Yes. Okay, so until now, the Gemara was talking about kings or leaders that don't have a portion of the world to come. We learned in Parashat Shlach about the spies. Now we're talking about commoners, meaning they're not kings. Who are these 4 people? So we have Bilam, and the Gemara is, and we're going to learn later about Bilam. He's the worst of all of them. And the Gemara finishes up and says, you want to talk negative about everyone else, try to minimize the negativity. But Bilam, bring it on, because he's Mamash Russia. We're going to learn about him. Doeg, of course, everyone knows he's the advisor to King Saul, who also causes destruction in the city of Nov, that we learned about, that he killed the city of Nov. The Kohanim, very jealous of King David. He doesn't have a portion of the world to come. Achitophel later has become he's the advisor to David, one of the smartest people of his time, the head of the Sanhedrin. But the Gemara refers to him as a Russia. The Rebbe, whenever he talked about Achitophel, was a Russia. He fought against David HaMelech. Incidentally, he was David HaMelech's Machatonim, because Bathsheba is Achitophel's daughter. But that doesn't stop people from fighting. Gehazi, we learned about, he actually is a little before. He's later. Gehazi is the Gabbai of Elisha, the prophet, right? So we learn about the 4 Mitzrayim, the 4 people that have Tzaras. Gehazi is him and his 3 sons. So he's a horrible Gabbai, and so therefore he's also doesn't have a portion of the world to come. The Gemara says what he did. He wasn't just a bad Gabbai. He was a Chaytimachta. He caused others to sin. He was the one who kind of upgraded the tumah, the impurity of the calves that were put up in the north by the kings of Israel. So because of that, doesn't have a portion of the world. Now we're going to learn about Bilam. Bilam, the first, the Gemara, like it always does, is tries to understand his name. So the word Bilam is 2 words, which is Baal Beloy Am, without a person that has no people, has no nation. One of the reasons it's brought down is that he left his place to be where he was at the time of the story of the Jewish people coming to Eretz Yisrael. So he was already kind of He had no citizenship. Davar acher Bilam shebilaam. He tried to tear down a nation, which would be the Jewish people, in what he was trying to accomplish in this week's parsha. And who is his father? His father is Ba'or. So what's Ba'or? Ben Ba'or. Sheba al Be'ir. Now the question is that he partook in bestiality. So the question is if Ba'or himself was such a person, means the father of Bilam, or Bilam himself was a person who engaged in bestiality. From the Gemara, it seems both of them did. Okay, we'll see. Learn the Gemara is going to go more into the behavior of Ba'or. But basically, see, the rule is, it's a little bit like today. The rule is that Tumah doesn't come necessarily packaged nicely. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Bilam was Tameh. He was Ish Tameh. Everything about him was Tameh. And his way he engaged was Tameh, and his private life was Tameh. And that's the koyach of Tumah. So he was really personified there. The Rashi seems to say, when we say Ba'or, that he engaged in bestiality, Rashi says that we're talking about Bilam, but also it seems like the Gemara feels that his father also did. Okay, so first the Gemara, so that's what we're going to see right now. The Gemara says like this, that Tana hu Ba'or, we're talking about the father now, so we have to know who he is. He was Ba'or. He Kushan Risha Sayim. He's also Kushan Risha Sayim. Kushan Risha Sayim is a person who is later found in the Shoftim and the judges, who is an oppressor and a tyrant to the Jewish people. So his name was Kushan Risha Sayim. And who Lavan Harami, and he's also Lavan, which is
the Lavan we all know and love.
The Lavan that we all know and love is Ba'or, is the father of Bilam. Okay, so meaning to say, this is our enemies always come from within. This is already the prophet says.
Didn't Lavan's father die just as Yaakov got there?
No, that's Lavan's father. This is Lavan. Ba'or is Lavan. Bilam's father. So you would have Bilam's father who died. Lavan's father who died, Lavan, and Bilam's. The Gemara is saying that Lavan is Bilam's father.
Oh.
Okay. But the Gemaras have a lot of inconsistencies, means different opinion. Means when I say inconsistencies, different opinions. But Bonagid, based on what we're saying now, we're talking about a person who lived very long, because Bilam lived in the time of the Jewish people coming into Eretz Yisrael, and the story of Kushan Risha Sayim, which happens in Judges, is many years later. So it means Lavan outlives his son Bilam, because Bilam dies in Parshas Pinchas, according to most opinion. I mean, that's the Gemara. So he's killed. He's one of the people killed by in the war of Midian. So Ba'or is Kushan Risha Sayim, Lavan Arami. Ba'or also Shabai al Be'ir. So Ba'or himself, he himself also engaged in bestiality. He had relations with his animals. Why is he called Risha Sayim? The word Risha Sayim is plural. The Ovid Shtei Rishia is because this person, Lavan, did two horrible things. Be Yisrael to the Jewish people. Achas Yaakov. One was he tried to track down Yaakov when he chased Yaakov. He wanted to kill him. Right? God has to intervene to tell him don't mess with Yaakov. But otherwise, his plan was to kill Yaakov. So he tried to do a horrible thing. We say that in the Haggadah. Lavan bikush la'akar sakol. Lavan wanted to kill everyone. So Lavan wanted to kill the whole Jewish people in the beginning. So he obviously has no allegiance to his family, right? Because obviously Yaakov's children are his grandchildren, and he says so himself. But that doesn't stop him from behaving the way he behaves. And later, in the times of the judges, he's Kushan Risha Sayim, who is the king of Aram Naharam, that is oppressing the Jewish people. Umashmai, what is his real name? Lavan Harami, Lavan the swindler, Shemai, that's his name. So Lavan is the father of Bilam, according to the Gemara, and he lives a long time because he's Yaakov's father-in-law, and even if he was not that old then, but till the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, we're talking about 300 years, and then later in the time of the judges. So he lives a super long time. He's also kind of a prophet. We know that from the Torah ourselves because God speaks to him at night. That the Torah tells us. So, and he's also mishpacha. I mean, he's the grandfather of the Jewish people. That doesn't stop him from being who he is. So Rashi just tells us about these incidents of Bilam wanted to kill Yaakov, like we say in the Haggadah, Bikash La'akar Sakol, and also in the days of the Shoftim, God places the Jewish people in Kishon Rosh Hashanah. We're not going to do all the Gemara. This is a long Gemara, but I want to actually touch on the end of the story, and the few things that actually a lot of the prophecies we know the Rambam talks about, that the prophecies of this week's parsha is a lot focused on the days of Moshiach. And there's literally things that the Gemara quotes. This is a Gemara. This is a Gemara for how many years ago? Close to 2,000 years ago. It tells us stories that are literally happening now of Roman boats coming to attack Persia. I mean, these are things that are things that are happening now. And it doesn't seem like, I mean, what's happening in the past week is we see that also in the Gemara, how the Roman boats turned on the Jewish people. Okay. Chsiv, it says Ben Be'or Chsiv B'nai Bar. And the Torah tells us he's the son of Be'or, and also his son is Be'or. So which one is he? Is the father, is he the son? Is Be'or the son of Lavan or the father of Lavan? It wouldn't be such a challenging question because it's not such a crazy idea to have a son named after your father. But either way, Rabbi Yochanan says, Aviv B'nai Hu Loi B'nevius. He was a father, but he was a son like him in prophecy. It means that though Lavan was a prophet, like I said, God speaks to Lavan at night, but nevertheless, his prophecy is minor, small compared to his son. Lavan's a greater prophet. Lavan's a greater prophet. Again, it's interesting. There's different opinions if Bilam is a bigger prophet than Lavan. There's different opinions in the Rishonim if Bilam is actually his son or if he is his if he's descendant. But we know clearly from the Gemara, from the text in Parshas Vayetze, that when we deal with Lavan dealing with his children, Lavan's sons are his crew, that he talks bad about Yaakov. His sons are talking bad about Yaakov. Yaakov says, I hear that your brothers, your father and your brothers talking about me. So we see clearly that they didn't have great love for Yaakov or his family. Although one of the things Yaakov tells Lavan in like a kind of a side shtech, like they say, a little prick to the side of his to jab him a bit, is that you had no sons when I came here. That even the fact that he has sons is a blessing from Yaakov. So it comes to show you a kafui toiv, that he's actually, the fact that Bilam even's alive is a blessing from Yaakov, but it doesn't stop him from trying to destroy Yaakov. Okay. Bilam hud lo yasi lo asi. So the first thing we have to understand is that our Gemara again is talking about people that don't have a portion in the world to come. And we're talking about four commoners. Who are the four commoners? We mentioned Gehazi, Doeg, and Achitopel. These are all Jews. Bilam's not Jewish. So what's the obvious understanding from this Gemara? That only Bilam doesn't have a portion of the world to come, but other Gentiles do have a portion of the world to come. So first off, from here we see right away that there's a concept of the world to come for the Gentiles. So the Gemara says, Bilam hu d'lo yasi l'almadasi, ha'achrina asu. Other Gentiles are going to be part of the world to come. Who's of this opinion? So Rabbi Yeshua, this is an opinion of Rabbi Yeshua. I mean, it's not a clear-cut discussion if Gentiles will have a portion of the world to come. It's not so clear that they won't, because we have plenty of verses to support. The Rambam talks about that, and the Gemara before talks about that there's going to be service in a willing way. You have to remember something else. That just like the Jewish person has a neshama, and we know that the tradition by Chassidus and Kabbalah is a very small part of the neshama is in the conscious part of the person. There's a strong subconscious of the neshama. That's why we have the idea of the mazel. Mazel is the subconscious, and the Baal Shem Tov's famous Torah that the subconscious of the neshama, the part of that's out of the body, is much more aware of what's happening. That's why you could have thoughts of tshuva, and that's why there's the idea of the baskol. This is a famous teaching of Baal Shem Tov, but you have to also assume that zel umazeh, there has to be also the same thing in the subconscious of Tumah, that there's a conscious of Tumah and there's a subconscious of Tumah. They're just like the subconscious of Tumah, of Kedusha, Lahavdil, knows a lot and therefore pushes an agenda, which is holiness. The subconscious of Tumah also knows a lot and is pushing an agenda of Tumah. And therefore, a lot of what's happening now into this world in our time could be triggered by the subconscious of Tumah, which knows that maybe Moshiach is coming and good things are happening. And therefore, what they see in what's happening in the world today, they're pushing an anti-Semitic agenda. Okay, either way. So Rabbi Yeshua and Simachlaik is about if Gentiles have a portion of the world to come. They say our mission is according to the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua, which holds that they do have a portion of the world to come. Why? Because this is a discussion. The discussion is that we learn in a price that says Rabbi Lezer, famous Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Lezer always have discussions. So Rabbi Lezer and Omer, he says, he quotes a verse, and the verse says, Yeshuvu Rishayim l'sha'ila, that the wicked shall return back to the netherworld. The sha'ila is the abyss, Kol goyim shechi alikim. All the Gentiles who don't know God, who forget God. Now, how do you understand this pasuk? Are we talking about two types of people? One type of person is it who are kol goyim shechi alikim, all the Gentiles, the nations that don't know God. So Rabbi Eliezer says Yeshuvu Rishayim L'Shayla, that the wicked, meaning the wicked Jews, are going to go to the abyss. Elu Paisha Yisrael. These are the citizens of the Jewish people. Kol goyim shechi alikim. Elu Paisha goyim. Now, this word Paisha goyim is
the worst of the worst. No?
Yeah, but also it's also saying only the sinners of the goyim. So there's a few opinions about this, because Rabbi Eliezer holds that none of the Gentiles have a portion of the world to come. So why do you say Paisha goyim? So either you could say that he's saying all goyim are Paishim, are sinners, or there's another opinion that this was actually an effect of the censor. You know that the Gemara was totally censored. He censored the Gemara because of years of persecution from the church towards the Jews, but it says in the Gemara, certain things in the Gemara, certain language of the Gemara is very strong. So the censor added in a few things to say, we didn't say all goyim nations, we said the Paisha goyim. But he means to say, because he's of the opinion that they don't get it, they don't have a portion of the world to come. That's Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says no. Does it say all the nation, all the goyim don't have a portion of the world to come? It only says the goyim that don't know God. So how do you understand the pasuk? That the wicked go back to abyss, and these are the Gentiles that don't remember God, forget God. So which means that according to Rabbi Yeshua, righteous Gentiles do have a portion of the world to come. Nikuda. Okay, and that's what our Mishnah is the opinion. This for our Mishnah says only that Bilam doesn't have a portion of the world to come, because Bilam is not a righteous Gentile. He's in Russia. And also the Gemara continues. Bilam knew this Mishnah. He was a Talmud Chacham. So therefore he made a simon for himself. He made a sign. He makes a sign. He wants to know. It's interesting, you know. It's a Goyish thing. It's not a Jewish thing, but it's a prohibition of the Torah to make signs, right? You're not allowed to say if a cat comes here or this happens. You can't make signs about your life. But he made a sign. He made a sign to know if he dies. Omer, he says, Thomas Navshi Ma'isi Sharim. If I die like a righteous person, like, you know, I live out my life nicely, then, or in Thomas Navshi Ma'isi Sharim Te'achrisi Kamayu, then I will be like everyone else, like the Jewish people. I go to my people. That means if I don't die like a righteous person, I'm going to be like those who don't have a portion of the world to come. So he himself put a sign, a siman, if he's going to have a portion of the world to come or not. It's not so clear what that means vis-a-vis, like, I mean, was he in doubt in himself if he was a righteous person? I mean, did he think that his behavior was right? The Gemara tells us about Bilam, that Bilam it says that Rashi tells us now, in this week's Parsha, in today's Chumash, talks about why did God give prophecy to someone like Bilam? I mean, we're going to see about him, he's such a despicable person. He doesn't even clothe himself as a righteous person. So it says that he was, one of the things he did was that he brought corruption, immorality to the nations. They had a certain sense of immorality from the time of the flood. They were all descendants of Shem or Noach, and there's some that are descendants of Shem. Bilam himself is a descendant of Shem. He's Yaakov's family, right? If he's Lavan's son. So he comes in and he says, no, I'm the prophet, and I'm going to tell you could live a life of immorality. So, okay, now this is, yeah, we're going to learn at the end he dies by the sword. At the end, the Gemara says that, like I said, we're not going to get to the whole Gemara, but then the Gemara says he dies. They figured out a way to kill him in all four deaths of the Sanhedrin, of the Mises Bezdin, which is, you know, beheading and choking and burning and skila. Okay, so first the Rosh Yeshiva mentioned before about Moab and Midian. What was their connection? Moab and Midian, we have to remember, they're also shtikul mishpacha, some way either the relations, cousins or relations from Avram themselves. So Moab, it says ve'echel ziknei Moab v'ziknei Midian, the elders of Moab and elders of Midian. So Rashi quotes this Gemara, Tana Midian and Moab le'olam shalom me'olam. What's going on? They hated each other. Moab and Midian were people that hated each other. I mean, literally, you open up to any news today, this is what we're talking about. People that seem like they hate each other, they're ready to make peace as long as they're going to kill the Jewish people, right? So he says, Tana Midian and Moab le'olam shalom me'olam. They never had peace. Mashal, so what's the example? Shnei chalavim. You have two dogs like that are protective of the sheep, right? Shahayu be'eder, the dogs hated each other, right? They both had to protect the sheep, but they hated each other. Comes a wolf, and he's thinking the wolf is so that the sheepdogs are here to protect the sheep. But the wolf comes after one dog. The one dog doesn't have a chance against a single wolf. So you help. So he says we hate each other. So one dog thinks, let him kill my enemy. But he says to him, you're not going to help me. He says, if I don't help him, then tomorrow he's going to kill that guy, that dog. And tomorrow he's going to come after me. He could take out both of us singly, each day separately, but together he can. So it has save. So they had to join forces to kill the wolf, meaning that the enemy of my enemy is my enemy. So not the.
Who is the wolf?
In this case, there is the Jewish people. Yeah. So yeah, I mean the idea is like the Jewish people. Amar Papa says. The way whenever the Gemara says Hainu the Amr Inshi, one of the things, the rules that we know, this is piece of Gemara, like the other pieces we learned, it's called Agada. Agada is many layers, but we know the tradition of the Jewish people is that the deep of the depth, Alter Rebbe brings it in Tanya, is in the Agada. Like the secrets of Torah are hidden in the stories of Torah, in the Talmud. That's why the word Lahagid, Haggadah is much deeper of communication than Dibur or Amira. Haggadah is a really deep level of communication because there's a lot of depth in the Haggadah. So when it says Haimadani Inchi, this is what people say, seemingly like they're not just quoting, this is what people say. There's something very deep to the statement, although we may look at it and say it seems like a simple statement. What does he say? This is what people say, Karkushta Vishunra, the weasel and the cat, Avdu Hilula Mitarba Devish Gada. They make a wedding from the fat of the luckless, meaning they hate each other. Rashi says the weasel and the cat hate each other, but they're ready to join forces when it comes to their benefit. So again, you have to always be suspicious of when people get together. There's an agenda. Basically, the point over here is you have to always try to find the agenda. What's the common interest over here? And therefore, don't rely and say that traditionally Midian and Moab hate each other, or the cat and the weasel hate each other, and I'm going to survive because they're not going to bother me. The Jewish people have to always be worried about the greater agenda, which is selfishness and the destruction of the Jewish people.
Feedback.
You just have to put your volume lower. That's all.
You didn't hear too?
Okay, so we'll go a little as far as we can in the first part of the story, and we're going to skip a little bit to the end of the story. Bilam. Then the pasuk tells us that after later that only the heads of the princes of Moab are with Bilam. Sorry, Midian Lehech and Azal. Where did the princes of Midian go? Now the princes of Midian are suspicious. They're not sold on the whole story. This is like what Rosh Yeshiva says, because Moab is the instigator. They went to Midian, asked them, who's this person? What's his teva? What's his nature? As soon as Bilam says, I need a night, let me sleep on it, and I'll talk to you about tomorrow. So they said, this is not going to work. They right away, they saw this as a wasted exercise. How do we know? They say, Amru klum yesh av shesaynis b'nai. Is there a father that hates his child? What are you going to ask God? You're going to ask God if you could kill the Jewish people? Of course, he's not going to let you kill the Jewish people, curse the Jewish people. This is not a good idea. Again, what do we see from here? These Gemaras show us the teva of the hate for the Jewish people, that even if they say that God's the father and the Jewish people are the son, so that enough should be to say that this is something miraculous, something spiritual. Doesn't have anything to do with that. Don't confuse me with the facts. We know God's the father and he's the son, but we still hate the Jewish people. So so they left. Here, Rav Nachman says an amazing Gemara. Rav Nachman says like this: Chutzpah afilu klape shmai mahani. This is a concept. The Rebbe used to quote this Gemara to the Malyus as a positive. This Gemara is talking about negative. Chutzpah means a person who has chutzpah, right? A person has chutzpah. Even God gets, so to say, affected by chutzpah. Like you could be a chutzpah even to God. Chutzpah, afilu klape shmai, even to heaven, mahani, it could work. Why? Beginning, God tells him, don't go with them. Don't go with the people of Moab. And then God says, okay, go with it. So what changed? Why did God allow Bilam to go with him? Because he was chutzpahdik, and God even got a little rattled by his chutzpah and let him go. Amr Rav Sheshes now says, what is? How do we understand what's chutzpah? What's the character of chutzpah? Chutzpah machus b'lei tagahi. It's a very powerful line. Chutzpah is like a king without a crown. You're coming with all this chutzpah. You have no crown. You have no basis for it. You have no backing for it. You don't have the crown. But that's a chutzpah. And how do we see that? On the reverse, King David said in the early years when David HaMelech was king, who was his main chevra around him was his nephews, but Tzruya was his sister, and the sons of Tzruya was Yoav and Avishai, and then there's the third one, Asael, that was killed, right? So it says, David says, I'm weak, even though I'm an anointed king. My cousins and my nephews are tougher than me. Yoav wasn't going to listen to David what is it talking about specifically? The war with David and Avner. He goes and kills Avner. He doesn't listen to David. So David felt vulnerable, even though he had a crown, but chutzpah was stronger. Because I'm the anointed one, and they do what they want. From here you see that although seemingly, like Rashi says, I claim I need God only him. I'm greater than David says. I'm greater than my nephews. El Moshiach, but all I have is any God. El Moshiach. I'm only greater than because all I have is the anointed as a king. That's they're going to still do what they want because they have chutzpah. Now the from here we see just a little side piece from this Gemara. It's not the topic that we're talking about, but we see over here that things with David HaMelech at the end when David makes deals with Yoav, he tells Shlomo to kill him basically, is because they had a little bit of beef in some way or another, even though he was a loyal general to him. But we see that politics is politics. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan says like this, tells us a little bit more about Bilam. Bilam chiga b'raglei echad achasaya. He was limped with one foot. Means he couldn't. Rashi says he had a dislocated hip and he couldn't walk. And the word shefi means he's walking with he didn't walk straight. He walked with a little limp on his foot. Shimshon the Gibor, the judge of the Jewish people, he was limping both legs. When the bracha of Yaakov to Dan, which is a reference to Shimshon, like we know Rashi says, he says the word shvifon. Shvifon, in the word shefi is the concept of being limp. So he was big. Shvifon is plural. So both his legs he was limp. The Gemara says from here we see the Marsha says from here we see the difference between Bilam and Shimshon. Bilam was lame in the one leg. So, and a person who's lame usually doesn't want to run around, but his hate for the Jewish people was so strong that even though it was difficult for him to do what he had to do, he was ready to jump on his donkey and go curse the Jewish people. Shimshon, on the contrary, he was limping on both legs. But to save the Jewish people, he was going to go to put himself, he was inconvenience himself, or whatever the uncomfortableness of being lame, to go help the Jewish people. That's what Marsha says. So, he was blind in one eye. He only had one eye that he could see out of one eye. Like it says, Shesum ayin, he only had one eye that was open. But the other eye, he was blind. But he was an interesting character, to say the least. Rahi quotes over here in Steinsaltz that in both cases, the point is to describe the essence of each person. Bilam was disabled and nevertheless extended himself to mark on the journey, the long journey, and to endure hardship motivated by hatred for the Jewish people. Shimshon, Samson, although he was disabled, nevertheless he delivered the Jewish people from their enemies because he was a good Mesiras Nefesh for the Jewish people. Here the Gemara says more about Bilam. He was a magician with his penis. How do we know? And they say, which another thing the Mefarshim bring down, that his, again, like I said before, Tuma is the opposite of Kedusha. So everything in Kedusha is Shmir Sebris, right? We know about the importance of Shmir Sebris. He did everything through masturbation. That's how he brought the Tumah. That's how he was able to bring curses to people. So he was a total opposite of Kedusha. And how do we know? He says, Neifel Ugluinaim. He quotes a pasuk about him. He's fallen with open eyes. That Haman fell on the bed of Esther. and it's brought down. What happens after Haman falls in the bed of Esther? What's Achashverosh accuse him of? He's trying to sleep with the queen. Gemara says that Gabriel gave him a push. He was crying, and Gabriel tripped him, and he fell on the queen. And then Achashverosh walked in. It looked like he was trying to rape Esther, but that's already the story. But at the end of the day, from Achashverosh's perspective, that's what he saw. So we see from Neufel means that a person is immorality. Is Itmar Marzut Omer. Marzut says Kaisim Bamasi Hayah. One says that he was a magician with his penis. The other one says that he practiced bestiality. Like we say from the pasuk of Esther. The one says that he practiced bestiality because it says, this is a hard Gemara because it's not, a lot of them first take out this Gemara. It says Kara Shachav. And Shachav means that he crouches and lays down, but that was really a blessing he gave the Jewish people. That's why we have the operation last summer of Crouching Lion, right? What was it called? What was the name of the operation last year against Iran? Crouching Lion. So that was based on the blessing, but here he uses it to show that he was crouching. That means that he practiced bestiality. How do we know the word shachav could mean such behavior? We're going to turn the page to the next page. So the Gemara says it talks about Kara Nafa Shachav. It talks about Yael and Sisra. So Sisra also was molested or whatever, had relations with Yael before she killed him. It's a story of Sisra and Barak and Deborah. Some Gemara say that she didn't sleep with him. Some say she did sleep with him. Gemara Yevamah says that he had 7 relations that day. Whatever. There's different Gemaras about the opinion of it. From here we see, anyways, the Gemara learns out from here that Yael did an avera for the saving the Jewish people, and others who tried. And she did an avera lishma, and we'll learn later Balak, not Bilam, Balak the king did a mitzvah shaloi lishma. Okay, it says we'll get to that in a second. It says about Bilam v'yidei das elyon. What does Bilam say about himself? I know the knowledge of the Most High. He knows what's going on by God. That's what we talk about. We talk about Bilam. He was a great giant in understanding. I mean, there was people that, again, real horrible people are not people that are not connected. They're connected. They're just connected in a totally wrong way. So he's connected totally through Tumah. And he says, I know what's going on in heaven. So the Gemara challenges his statement. How could you say that? He didn't even know his animal was up to. Right? His animal's walking to the side and hurting him. He doesn't know what his animal's up to, but he knows what God is up to. How is that possible? My das behemte. What is the das behemte? So the Gemara says it's not just that he walked off the road and he confused and he tried to hurt him. They had a long conversation. The behemoth embarrassed him. Why? The Amrei, my time in general, even the nations hated him. Balak didn't. You see the narrative in the whole Chumash. Rashi talks about, the Gemara talks about. They didn't respect him. They needed him. He was powerful. He had a weapon that they needed from him, but they didn't respect him. And the more they saw that he was so after money and he was all about his own ego and his own covet, the more they despised him. But they needed him, so they made fun of him. One of the things he said is, "Why are you driving? Why is your mode of transportation a donkey? That's not respectful. Why don't you have a horse? Where's your horse? Yes, why are you driving a motorcycle? Where's your car? Why are you in a tustus? So my time why are you not on a horse? It doesn't say the truth. He says, Shadai lu britiva, it's in the mechanic. They're out, I don't know you guys are coming here. They're out pasturing on eating light, they needed some wet grass, so they went out, they're not available. This is an emergency. In an emergency situation, I'm ready to take my donkey. But otherwise, of course, I travel by horse. So he called foul. He says, no, you're saying the truth. You're not saying the truth. I've always been your donkey. Why are you saying that your horses are out to pasture? So he says, no, if I use you, Latina Balm, I only use you to carry my packages. I don't ride you. I just use you for the pickup, for the back. So he says, no, you do take me, you do ride on me. He says, Akri Ba'alma. He says, no, that only happens once in a blue moon. So he says, no, you always ride. You don't have any horses. There's no horses around. What do you make up stories? So he's the donkey was in on it. Everyone's embarrassing Bilam. But he's so motivated. You think, it means with all his shame, He didn't care. He was motivated by hate, and he's motivated by greed. And those two things, and he had the character of his father, Lavan. We learned Ba'ar is Lavan, right? What does Lavan do as soon as he sees Eliezer? His eyes light up. He sees dollar signs, right? He wants to take Eliezer. And what does he see when he sees Yaakov? Rashi says he kisses, he hugs him. He's trying to find his money. He wants to, maybe he's hiding gold diamonds in his pocket, in his mouth. So he's the same. This is the characters. This is people dealing with. And the donkey continued. Let's be honest. We sleep together at night. So you have a whole relationship with me. Don't say I'm upset. You found that you pulled a donkey out of the garage. See if how do we know? So he said again, Ahasken Hiskanti and Tilei Sechenes. It talks about when they brought Avishai to David HaMelech, that the word Hasken has in it comforting, warmth, keeping warm, to keep that Bilam found warmth with his donkey. All right. Okay, that's what we're dealing with. So what's the Yedei Dasalin? What did he know about? He says he knows what's going up on the high. So it says he knew to find when God's going to be angry at the Jewish people. Rashi says in the Gemara and the Chumash, Rashi says that Bilam and Balak they both had different advantages than the next. But Balak was a much greater magician than him, and Bilam had the power of the curse. So Balak actually, why did Balak always take him to different locations? It says he took him here, he took him there. Why? Because Balak knew where the Jewish people are going to sin, but he couldn't do anything about it. He needed Bilam. He said, "Go stand over here. This is where they're going to sin over here," and you then curse them. So they both had their own ideas. So he knew when God is going to be angry. So he figured, I know how to get to Hashem. Behind it, Navi Yisrael. And this is what we say in the Haftorah. Ami Zecharna. Remember, my people. My Ya'itz Balak ben Mayav. Balak Melech Mayav. Uma Ana Oisai Bilam ben Beyor. What did Balak suggest, and what did Bilam answer it? Minashitim ad Gilgal, leman das sitkes Hashem. From Shittim till Gilgal, to know God's righteousness. What does it mean? Leman das sitkes Hashem. Amram HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Gemara teaches, God said to the Jewish people, the Una, no, kam tzedakah asisi machem. How righteous I were with you. Shalai ka'asti kol oisen hayamim b'mei Bilam harasha. I never was angry by Bilam. Means Bilam says, I know when God's angry, but he's never angry. He controlled his anger, so to say, not to get angry, because then why? Because again, what do we see from this? We see from this that why couldn't God just say whatever? Like, I'm not goyrus Bilam. Who's Bilam? That doesn't work like that. Bilam had a koyach. There's a koyach hatuma, right? Even on the Yamsuf, the angel says, "Halalu avdei v'edezara, halalu avdei v'edezara." God, there's a place in godliness that listens to the kitroigim. So Bilam has a kitrug. Again, you have to remember the rule. Bilam doesn't lie. When he wants to bring negative to the Jewish people, he doesn't lie. God has to not listen to him. And why doesn't he listen to him? Because he's never angry. He only would listen to him if he's angry. So what was the chesed that God did? He said, I'm not going to get angry. You know, when a person walks into a conversation about their own family, someone that they love, when they resolve, I'm not going to get emotionally, I'm not going to react to whatever the person tells me. I'm going to stay with my love for whatever the situation is. So you don't allow, even if a person's going to say something that's hurtful. It's true. Bilam says the truth. He tells the Jewish people are going to do things. He shows what they're going to do in the future. So, but God doesn't allow himself to get angry. Doesn't allow himself to respond. So he says, because if I would have been angry, there'd be no, the Gemara uses nice language, but there would be no memory of the Jewish people. Because Bilam gives a good argument. But I didn't let Bilam affect. And that's why Bilam tells Balak, my ekav leikabayel. How could I curse him? God doesn't want me to curse him. Even though God has anger every day, but he doesn't have anger. He didn't have anger in that time. How long is his anger? Rega, only a second. He rega ba'api, only a second he has in his af. So God, even that second wasn't angry, and therefore Bilam wasn't able to arise, guys. And the other pasuk, the Gemara says, another pasuk is Lech ami boy b'chadrecha, go into the room, scarred l'sacha, ba'adecha chavi kimat rega ad yavarzam. Go hide until the anger subdues itself. So therefore you have to. But when is God angry? The Gemara says b'tlas shai kamaisa, in the first 3 hours of the day. That's why you should know. That's why we do a lot of things in the morning. That you get stuck in the morning, chesed, we daven in the morning, wake up early, we do a lot of things to counter this energy. The same as in the first 3 hours of the day. Ki chavara karbala the tarnagalisa. When the crest of the rooster is white. Kol shaita v'shaita east base. So the Gemara says kol shaita v'shaita namechivara. It's always white. It says no. If you look at it, usually you could see suraike sumka. You could see a little bit of strains of red. Ahi shaita less by suraike sumka. There's no red. So that's that moment when it's white. So I said, why white? Why is that a sign of anger? It's like a person who gets white from fear. So the Gemara. So that it's not that the chickens or the roosters' fear is the anger, but he's a sign, a symbol that there's fear. Here we're going to learn a little piece of Gemara. It says, "Ahum Havamina." There was a heretic or a Christian, because that day he could have been a Christian. The Hava Yeshiva the Rabbi Yeshiva ben Levi. He was in the neighborhood of Rabbi Yeshiva ben Levi, the famous Rabbi Yeshiva ben Levi who lived after the Rebbe or during and after Rebbe. The Hava commit Sarle. He bothered him. So Rabbi Yeshiva ben Levi took a chicken. And I guess he knew the Gemara, so he figured he's that's it. Yes, the rooster, sorry. He's going to take a rooster and he's going to see when the thing is exactly white. And he's going to curse this person this heretic who's bothering him. I'm going to wait. He put him between his legs and he said that he's going to wait. But as soon as he sees that it's totally white, he's going to curse him. But what happened? Rabbi Levi was waiting and he got tired, he fell asleep and he napped. And then he woke up. It was too late, but he learned from this a good lesson. He said, "From this, I see God didn't want me to curse him." It's the crest. What is the crest? The crest is the neck or the
back of the neck.
Like back of the neck. Yeah. So it's totally white. So he said that he realized that God didn't want him to curse. It's not appropriate. A tzaddik shouldn't be punishing people, even though he was a heretic. Even if he's a min, I shouldn't have cursed him. So he learned a lesson. Okay, let's see. Tanur Mishmei Meir. We'll go a few more minutes here, and then we're going to skip forward. Tanur Mishmei Meir. We learned from a Meir. Why is it the first 3 hours of the day? Because that's when the kings rise. You put the crowns on the head. So God sees how they start worshiping the sun, and whatever the sun represents, ego, money, wealth, other things that are God. God gets upset. It rises his anger. Okay. Gemara says, "Vayakam Bilam babayka v'yachvish asoynei." The Gemara says, the Rashi quotes this Gemara that Bilam wakes up early in the morning as soon as he gets God's permission. He doesn't sleep in, even though he should have slept in because he's somewhat of an important person. He wakes up early and gets his donkey ready himself. Talmud Sanhedrin Reb Shimon the son of Elazar says, that love overrides the appropriate behavior. Shura means appropriate behavior of greatness. A great person doesn't do things. He waits for his servant to wake up. Mi Avram, we learned that from Avram. The Chsiv, Vayashkim Avram Baboker. Avram woke up early in the morning. So it's two things. One opinion is that he woke up early. It's a self-chiddush. Avram doesn't have to wake up early. Important people sleep in. Shlomo Melech slept in too long. His mother was upset. But there's important people sleep in. So it says, but Avram woke up early because he loved God. He wanted to do what Hashem wanted. Sinim vatal shusha gedula. And hate also pushes a person to do things that's inappropriate for them. Where do we see that from Bilam? Bilam also wakes up early and he gets his donkey ready. Okay, we're going to learn a little further. He says like this. The Rashi quotes that the Medrash that says that when Bilam woke up early, God says to Bilam, slow down. You think you're going to wake up early and show that your hate is so strong? Avram already canceled you. He woke up early and he showed his love for the Jewish people. So Yehuda Marav says, "La'olam yasik ad," this is a famous Gemara. "La'olam yasik ad b'torah mitzvah afilish shloilish shma sh'mitayach shloilish ma b'alishma." A person should always engage in the study of Torah, even if it's not for the Shema, it's not for the right reasons. Not for the right reasons is a long list, from the really wrong reasons to not the highest of reasons. But still, a person may say, I can't really have the proper kavanah. This is because eventually you're going to get to the right place. Where do we see this from? Because in the reward of the Arba'im Shtayim Karbanais Shehikriv Balak, And by the way, the number 42 is not insignificant, but it's significant. The 42 is the Shem Hashem of Anu B'choach. That for the 42 sacrifices that Balak sacrificed, and he sacrificed it for the wrong reasons, totally shlo lishma. It wasn't like he didn't have the right reasons. He had the wrong reasons. He was sacrificing to God to curse the Jewish people, right? Nevertheless, Zalcha v'yatzim and Rus. He was, because of that, he had Rus. Rus is a descendant. Means King David, Moshiach, everything that the prophecy, everything goes full circle here. It's always the same players, right? Lavan, Bilam, they're all the same people. Balak is the grandfather of Rus. Rus is the grandmother of David HaMelech, who's Moshiach. The whole prophecy is about Moshiach. So what happens? Zach v'yatzim and Rus. Rus comes from Balak. How do we know? Rus bita shel Eglon. Rus is the son of Eglon, and Ben Benoy shel Balak, the son, some descendant. The commentators argue. I'm not sure what the challenge is. It's not such a long period of time, but either way, he's the grandson of Balak, Melech Moav Vaisa. So Eglon is Ruth's father, and Ruth, of course, is the grandmother of David. What was Balak's chus? That he should be the grandfather of David and the dynasty of David, all the way to Moshiach? It's because he did 42 sacrifices, and he did it why? To curse the Jewish people. From this we learn that do something, do. Don't be worried about your intention. The ikr is to get it done. Amar Rabba l'Rabbi bar Mori. This is a side Gemara. It says that the servants of David praised David, that Shlomo should be greater than his name, his throne should be greater than his throne. So the Gemara challenges, why would they say that? Why would you tell the king that your son is greater than you and his throne is greater than you? So it's therefore they say that he meant to say that he should be almost as great as you. And same thing, that's why we talked about Yael before. That Yael also Tevarach Minashim Yael Eishes Chevrakeni. That we praise Yael. So why? Because the Gemara also, by the way, the Gemara talks about L'Shlo L'Shma L'Shma also talks about Yael. That Yael she did an Avera L'Shma because she slept with Sisera. Nevertheless, we say Tevarach Minashim Yael Eishes Chevrakeni. Minashim ba'oil Tevarach. She's even greater than the woman of the tent. Who are the women of the tent? Nashim ba'oil Maninu, Sarifka Rachaleah. That she's even greater than our four mothers. The Apostle tells us that Yael is greater than the four mothers. And the main comment there, she's almost as great as the four mothers. And in general, this is a good Gemara to continue with. Amar Rabbi Yosef Bachani says the Amar Rabbi Yosef Bachani. This argues on Rabbi Yosef Bachani, who says, "Bakol Adam Skana Chutz Mi B'nai B'Talmidai." So that person is jealous of everyone, but his son and his student. And that's why the Gemara, the Rabbi Yosef Bachani says, it's okay to praise David that Shlomo should be greater than him. Why? Because a person is not jealous of his son. You take pride in your son's achievements. How do we know that? B'nai Mishleima. From Shlomo we learned that David took pride that his father, that his son would be greater than him. V'talmidai. And how do we know from his students? Because it talks about Elisha and Eliyahu Navi. Elisha said, I want to be double as great as you. And Eliyahu Navi benched him at that. So why would he want to ask the Rebbe to be greater than him? Because he's not jealous of his student. Okay. Now we're going to skip down. We have a few minutes. So we're just going to sit down to two pieces I want to show. One is about the prophecy says about the boats.
What?
About the Zim. You know the company Zim? Zim is a company, Zim in Israel. It's from this week's Parsha, right? So he says, so where is this? It says, hold on, let's just scroll down. We're scrolling down the next page. On 106a, it says, so it's the middle page. It says, with regard to the verse and ships. See that? Vitzim miyad kitim. This is in the prophecy of Bilam. So the company Tzim is ships. That's why that's the name Tzim. Vitzim miyad kitim. Omer Rav. Rav says, Libun Aspir. That it's a Roman legion. V'inu Asher v'inu Aver. I'm not sure what the basis of Reb Steinsaltz's explanation here. Most of Farshim don't understand the way he understands it, but I think he's quoting from the Gaonim. They're going to afflict or oppress Ashur. Ashur is Assyria. It's not really a country today. So Syria would be today kind of the areas between Syria and Iraq. V'inu Aver. Ad Asher Kotli Mikdal, until he reaches, so it's going to be basically a war in the times of Moshiach between the Roman legions, and Rome today represents the West, and Paras and Persia. So he's going to come to the Ashur, and until Ashur, he's in a Kotli Mikdal, he's going to kill everyone. The Kan Ve'elech, he's not going to have the strength to kill, is Mishabdi Shibude. So seemingly, most Mefarshim learn it's talking about a war outside of the Jewish people. That's the killing is going to be of nations outside the Jewish people, and the slaving it's going to be outside the Jewish people. But Reb Steinsaltz talks about that there's going to be murder of the Jewish people, and there's going to be enslavement of the Jewish people. If you see Rashi, Reb Steinsaltz says, according to the variant reading, the Gemara, which says Ligan Asper, the Gaonim explain that the Roman regiment will attack the Persian Empire, reaching as far as Assyria and killing the Jews. From that point on, the Romans will be weakened. I'm seeing this in our own days, right? Things changed over. As they will be forced to treat the Jewish people with more consideration, they will enslave them instead of killing them. But that depends if you look, talking about the killing is going to be the Jewish people, the killing is going to be of the people that they're fighting against. But again, we see today what's happening. It's a little bit showing there's a lot of things going on. All right, the Gemara continues, you have 4 minutes. So what does he say? He doesn't curse the Jewish people, it doesn't work. First of all, the Gemara says, we missed this piece of the Gemara. Gemara says that everything he meant to curse the Jewish people happened at them. He had a whole list of curses. The only thing that he wasn't successful is Matov Yaakov. He couldn't curse the yeshivas. It's funny, huh? He couldn't curse the yeshivas and the Beis Medrash and the shuls. The Beis Medrash and shuls, he couldn't curse. Everything else that he said is going to happen, it didn't happen then, but it happened eventually. It says, I'm going to tell you what you should do with these people. So it says he was kind of trying to curse it in a direct way. What did he tell them to do? He said to them, the Jews, the God of these people, the Jews, hates lewd behavior. The Jewish people, imagine this. The Jewish, this talking about, this is not the generation that left Mitzrayim, because the people that are standing now in the story of Bilam are the people that already after the Gezerah. This is the generation that goes into the country. It means they themselves are descendants, or they were children in the time, but they had the tradition, right? So for some reason, there was this concept that the Jewish people had an obsession with linen clothes. Why? Because they wore linen in Egypt, and Egypt is known for fine linen. And they living in the desert, when someone gets off at 40 years traveling and you're not changing new clothes, say, what do you want to buy? You want to buy some new linen clothing. So he knew that they wanted linen clothing. There's obviously something deeper to this than just simple something so silly like this. Because that's what brought them down was the linen clothing. I can tell you what to do. I say make a big market. Instead of prostitutes, have older women that are unattractive on the outside and the young girls on the inside. They should try to sell them the linen clothing. So the Jews are coming to the market to go buy clothing. I say make it from the Hermon to the Yeshimos, which is a large space from the Hermon in the north, further down south. The Jewish people are going to eat and drink and go out to the market. You're looking for linen clothing. So the elder woman's going to say, I'll sell to you at a fair price. Means the price that it's that they should pay. And they're going to go inside, and the young girls are going to give them a discount. And after they have this 2-3 times of purchasing, so then they become comfortable. It's like Hariyat and Bias, you're part of our family, right? We're friends. Go take what you want, have some wine. They still didn't have the laws of the Yain Nesach then. So the Gemara says, why would they drink wine? You're not allowed to drink non-kosher wine. And after they start drinking the wine, it goes down from there. All right. The Gemara continues and says that from there came all the things that happened. There came the sin of the Pa'or, which led to the end of the parasha, which led to the beginning of next week's parasha. That's all we learned on our own. If we maybe go further next week. All right, everyone. Shavua Tov.